Senior colleague, is that what we call you?
Senior, does that mean old?
We are here at it means you're wise, and it means that you've got a lot of experience behind you. But we're here at Trade HQ, which has just been going off in the last few days. And we thought, if we're going to get someone in, we might as well get the newsbreaker in. And you've broken a big one today, Glenn. Tell us about Levi Greenwood and his destination of choice.
Yeah, when you looked at it, you thought the Kangaroos are getting in Sean Higgins. They've got in Tick, which he copped that, but on big money.
Yep.
450 over 4 years. They got in Jared Waite, fantastic, Tick. The big cross is Levi Greenwood has told them today, and we were able to report this exclusively at SuperFooty, that he wants to go to Collingwood. So
it's magnificent for the I believe that deal is 4 years by 400,000. Now, almost the same terms as Sean, like as a player, but yeah, missed first place by a vote.
Correct, which is quite amazing when you look at it. He had a fantastic year, outstanding. He wasn't a part of the squad basically at all last year. Had a few injuries and fell out of favour with Brad Scott, but had a season-defining or career-defining perhaps season this year, and it's earned him 4 years at Collingwood. I think the Kangaroos will be really disappointed they couldn't keep him. They thought several weeks ago, and in fact, we were trying to report that it was nearly over the line. It wasn't over the line. He got initially a 1 year offer.
Which is insulting, let's face it.
Totally insulting when you consider they were prepared.
And on less money, I believe, than his previous deal.
Absolutely, and that is insulting. And then they upped that as he's continued to form, continue to go along. So they upped that. But when you look at it, I think Kangaroo supporters will be really disappointed that they've got basically Sean Higgins in as a replacement for Levi Greenwood. I think it's a really disappointing thing for the Kangaroos.
Now, a career-defining season, but he hasn't had a great career to date. Now, I think he played 22 games, and he had an outstanding finals campaign. He can tag. He went forward and kicked 16 goals. But before that, he played 11 games in the previous 2 years. So was this a breakout season, or was this just one good year in a mediocre career of 74 games? There's some North Melbourne supporters would have you believe.
And they might be right. In that sense, they might be right. It's just we're not going to know probably till next year. And when you look at Collingwood losing Brent McCaffer, pretty much, even though he's saying he wants to play round 1 next year, he's not going to play round 1 next year.
No, he did it, round 10 last year?
A little bit later, a lot later, round 21 or 20. So it was August. So it was an August one. But a lot of people thought that McCaffer would miss most of the year and wouldn't be back till July. No doubt Collingwood believe he'll be back a lot sooner than that, perhaps, round 4, round 5, because it was a clean ACL. So there was no other damage around it other than a clean ACL. But Greenwood gives them a little bit of insurance in the midfield. And also what they're worried about, losing Beams. He's no Beams. There's absolutely no doubt he's not a Beams. What they were worried about is Scott Pendlebury being smashed in the midfield. And Greenwood comes in as a bit of insurance and to help protect him as well.
So how do they get this deal done? There's a couple of solutions. Well, Collingwood's second-round pick would be around 26, 27 with compo selections. They're likely to get pick 23 from Melbourne for Heredia Lumumba. So there's a couple of picks within what we think would be a reasonable range.
And I think that's reasonable, Ralphie, when you look at it. He's had one breakout year, Levi Greenwood, and that's what North will be saying, in a lot of sense. They want a little bit more if they could, but they know deep down that he's probably worth about a 23, 26 pick.
And they've got real depth in their midfield, and some people are telling us today about Trent Dumont, who apparently he's a really live wire midfielder who probably can tag as well and kicks it better than him, so they might give him some games. Well, look, we all know and admire Luke McDonald, who had a fantastic year and can tag. He tagged Rory Sloane late in the piece against Adelaide down at Blundstone Arena. So they've certainly got options there, and they've got midfield depth. Now, what else was going around today? Now, Jeff Garlett.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Ruff. And I think we reported a while ago that he wouldn't be at Carlton. We were pretty confident that he wouldn't be there.
Yeah, told him he was on the trade table.
So he was being told. He was told well before the end of the year that that he was going to be on the trade table with Mitch Robinson. But he's requested Melbourne, which is an interesting scenario.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit.
Yep, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, he's a bloke who's kicked 40-plus goals before. We understand he's got issues. We understand that he lied to Mick. And if you are at Carlton, that is the cardinal sin.
Correct.
But you know what? They need live wire midfielders and live wire forwards, rather, at Melbourne. Who they got? Jay Kennedy-Harris. They've got a bloke who takes beautiful marks in Jeremy Howell. He plays in the back line. They need a bit of life. They need a bit of excitement. You know what? If he runs forward to the play every now and then and kicks some cheap goals, they just need goal scorers.
Yeah, you're spot on, because that's the problem with Melbourne this year. As much as they improved in certain areas, you just want them to kick more goals.
Yeah.
Be a bit more lively.
Ruzi wanted him to kick more goals.
Sure, and it just didn't pan out, did it? It was really frustrating to watch. And I think that's a really good option for him. I think he was always going to get picked up Not so certain what's going on with Mitch Robinson. Any information there at all?
We keep hearing some whispers about Brisbane. I would think if they were to get to just give up picks, just give up pick 5 and maybe a later pick for Beams. I'm not sure how Beams and Robinson fit into that side. I mean, Beams is a superstar, but I'm just not sure that Robinson is the man for them. But we'll wait and see. That's the only club with real interest there. Now, we're hearing talk as well that Melbourne absolutely would be prepared to put picks 2 and 3 on the table. You know what? I think they should keep them. I think they should say, Angus Brayshaw, you're our man. Roosie, by all accounts, just loves Angus Brayshaw, who's a real hard midfielder. And we say, let's take a Paddy McCartan. Yeah, he might be a forward who might take a few years to come on, but you've already got Jesse Hogan there. If you could get Patrick Dangerfield, of course you make that trade. But don't bring in a 25-year-old who might have 5 good years when you can get 2 kids in who might play 12 or 14 years for your footy club.
Well, it's really interesting when you look at the coach and how long his tenure's for. It's an awkward situation where, he's only there for 2 more seasons.
But he's bringing in a bloke who he believes to be his successor. And
I totally agree with you. I think that's what they should look. They get the right blokes. That's what they've got to do. Not think what we can get out of this and how it's going to help us just next year. They need to build and build properly. And I think you're on the right money there.
And of course, they're going to have to bring some defenders in. Sam Frost seems to be the one from GWS. He's a former rookie, and he's been really good, but you wouldn't have to give up the world to try and get him. Maybe you get a delisted free agent who might just hold up an end in the midfield. There's going to be enough of those guys. Now, Ben Howlett, by all accounts, was gone. By all accounts, now he's staying. If James Hird is staying at the club,
what's going on with this footy club, Ralphie? What is going on with this footy club?
It's a shambles at the moment.
Total shambles.
So his manager, Jason Dover, has said, look, he's had a really good conversation with James Hird, and Hird he's going to be the man. I wish we knew what Jason Dover knows, because I don't think any of us really feel like that is a set in stone. So we've got him doing his thing. We believe that Howlett will sign on. And look, he's going to sign, and Hird he might bugger off or might be buggered off, but you feel like that's a positive development at least. But if you're an Essendon fan, there's been rumours going around about Jason Winderlich for a while. He sat down with James Hird and he said, I will sign with you. And now it seems like he's off to Richmond. That's got to be a big blow.
Oh, that's a big blow, because they really wanted him to play on, didn't they? And we saw...
They begged him
to play on. And we saw at stages of this year how important he was to the structure of the team. So he's a big loss. As we say, this footy club, it's really hard to read. Like, Ben Howlett, fantastic. If he stays, that's really good. But should it be up to Ben Howlett to be determining who's coaching that footy club? No, of course not. It's some strange comments going around at the moment. But yeah, Winderlich, I think the Tigers will do all right out of that. I really do think that you being a Tigers man, Ralphie, you'd be pretty happy with that, I reckon.
No doubt. They need that mid-sized forward. And I know they've got players in there like Sam Lloyd, like Nathan Gordon. Robbie Nahas has gone to North Melbourne. So they've got a lot of those sort of lead-up blokes. But I think the thing with Jason Winderlich is he's fantastic on the ground. He is very quick, and he's good in terms of his leading. But he's great with his assists. He sets up goals for other blokes. I know he's not a traditional crumbing forward, but he's never had an amazing goal output, and I think he only kicked an average of less than 1 goal a game this year. But it was what he did and what he made his teammates into, and he made them better players.
No doubt.
They're not going to win the flag next year, but I think he's a really good solution for 1 and potentially 2 years. We need to say, though, he did say when he retired, I had to lie straight on the bed or on the ground to actually put my socks on. So he's not Mr. Durability.
Well, someone could put the socks on for him, surely. Someone might have to put the socks on for him. But when you look at it, it's funny. Our guys are gone 1 minute and then they come back. Remember Mel Michael? The great Mel Michael was gone at Brisbane. The next minute he bobs up at Essendon.
And that might happen. Yeah, that might happen as well. And now, obviously, there is a clause in Winderlich's contract, which meant that he has got a 3rd year on that contract if he wants. But I think Richmond would be keener to say, look, he's already retired, like Mel Michael. Yes. Let him go through to a pre-season draft or more to the point, become a delisted free agent. So, we'll wait and see on that one. Do you want to answer a couple of questions? Missing out on Greenwood. Should the Tigers go harder at Armitage now or Robinson?
Robinson, no for me.
Yep. And look, St Kilda have been adamant that Armitage is not on the table. Look, it's been thrown up a few times, but I'm not sure that Richmond needs more midfielders of the likes of Slipper Miles or of the likes of Matt Thomas. I think they've got that complement.
Yeah, definitely. And with Greenwood, I think they were interested for a period of time and then they dropped off. And I think they realised that Collingwood were probably leading that race, even though I think Richmond's offer may have been slightly more than Collingwood's. Richmond have got enough of those kind of guys, I would have thought. So.
Yeah, and of course they want a lot of those blokes to rotate forward and potentially have goal kickers or midfielders who kick 25+ goals. So what would Richmond likely give up in order to gain Winderlich? Look, it'd be a late pick. He's a guy who's got 1 or 2 years left in him, or as I say, as a delisted free agent.
Yeah.
Now, pick 3 for James Frawley. I'm all for it. I'm not suggesting it's only for James Frawley. Surely there's a sniff of, look, they missed out that priority pick. Let's give it to them. They've had some horrific luck, I suppose, in terms of losing Mitch Clark, losing Liam Jurrah, losing all of these free agents. I'm for free agency compensation. I really feel like if a club like Melbourne just keeps getting its best free agents stolen, they need to get something in compensation. Of course, 3 is massive overs, but they deserve a bit of luck, don't they?
Yeah, I agree with that to a degree. Yeah, absolutely. And clubs should. If they consistently lose out on losing players as free agents, I think they should be rewarded. Pick 3's way overs, way overs. And really, dress this up whatever way you like. It's a priority pick, really, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yep.
They don't want to be seen to be given a priority pick, but in doing it this way, you do it without actually having to say it's a priority pick.
And a lot of people would say, I've suggested Melbourne needs a bit of luck. People say, well, what about their former administrations? This is about actually a situation that helps the fans.
Yep.
Don't penalise the fans for the tanking scenario, for years of misadministration, for Dean Bailey not being a great coach or Mark Nilde or whatever. This is about the present. Do they deserve a bit of luck in actually having missed out on, well, look at all the free agents that have departed. Your Rivers has departed. Maloney's departed. Mitch Clark's a quasi-free agent. Frawley's a free agent. And so you look at clubs like Hawthorn that just get them in, don't have to give up a pick. They get a bit of luck. I think Melbourne needs a bit as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Just hope they do the right thing this time, you know, and that's what I'm saying. And I agree with you saying, like, unless they could get something extraordinary for the picks 2 and 3, they're going to keep them.
Well, I mean, I reckon
keep them and
if
do
you
the
get
right thing.
If you get a Carlo, you might say yes.
If
you get a Paddy Dangerfield, you might say yes.
None of those are going to happen, are they?
No, exactly. So let's not fall into getting a 27-year-old bloke who might have 5 really good years when you've got 2 blokes who have just got so much of a future in them.
Yeah, they've just got to get it right this time. They've done it too often, even in recent years. Getting wrong, like the high-end drafting wrong. And that's sceptical about giving them extra because they're failed. It's got to get it right this time.
Tim Membry is 188 centimetre forward. He's not Buddy Franklin. He's not probably even Sam Reid, but he wants to get to St Kilda. And I think the fact that players want to go to St Kilda is a good thing.
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. And you probably would want to go to St Kilda and really create something, hopefully. He's going to be there for the long haul. He's not going to get a look in for 2, 3, 4 years, maybe longer if you look at it at Sydney.
Well, Tip and Buddy aren't going anywhere.
Correct. No, exactly. And probably Sam Reid's not going anywhere at the moment. He obviously carried some injuries this year and was disappointing. So I think it's great. Someone's putting their hand up and saying, I want to go to St Kilda.
And potentially John O'Rourke as well. He'll make a decision in the next couple of years. He's the pick 2 from GWS.
Hawthorn or St Kilda, do you think? Gee, Hawthorn, they want everything, don't they?
If I was a budding young midfielder, I reckon I'd be probably happy to just slot in there alongside Sam Mitchell and Luke Hodge. And, all those guys.
Some of these guys will be sort of faded out in the next. I think Mitchell's probably got 2 years ahead of him. Hodge has probably got 2 more years ahead of him. But if you could just come in and learn from those sort of guys for 2 or 3 years.
But again, you build your own destiny at St Kilda. You get a game every week. You're not sitting there in the VFL like a lot of those kids have been at Hawthorn. I think the fact that he's even considering St Kilda along with Hawthorn shows that Chris Pelchin and co are doing the right thing. They're bringing some kids in, and they will be a really good side if they, if all of these kids who they've re-signed over the last 3 weeks actually come good.
And we've seen a situation where clubs can turn things around pretty quickly. I don't think they're going to turn around real.
They'll be terrible again next year.
They're going to be. They'll be worse probably next year if you look at it. But hopefully that means in 3 years' time they won't. But you look at Port Adelaide, they were able to keep kids together. Not that St Kilda got too many kids like Port Adelaide had as well, but just get a young group behind them. And I think I really like Alan Richardson as a coach. I've got to say he's been dealt a bit of a sandwich that's pretty unpalatable at the moment. But I give him some time and give him the right picks. What do they do with pick 1? What do you reckon? What would you do?
I don't think they want the midfielder. I think they're desperate for a key forward. The problem has been, though, that they've always thought to themselves, we could trade down pick 1, who GWS are desperate for a Petrarca, for a Paddy McCartan. But all of a sudden, they've got pick 4 GWS. So are you absolutely guaranteed to get?
You're not.
Because, maybe a club might say, okay, we'll take Wright at 2 and we'll take McCartan at 3. Now, I know that's probably unlikely, but
it could happen.
But all of a sudden, it just would have them a little bit jittery. If you could trade down to pick 3, you're absolutely certain to get Peter Wright or McCartan. So they'd be a bit nervous about that. But I still don't mind the deal where if they could make sure that they would get Peter Wright at pick 3, and then they could get Christian Jacks as well, or they could get the GWS compensation pick, which is about 20. So if you're not absolutely sold on Petrarca, you think this is a really even draft, and you get Christian Jacks, who in his third year, he's ready to go, he's a swingman, and you get someone like Peter Wright, that appeals to me.
I love the risks that they take. They took some risks last year. I don't mind taking risks because you've seen plenty of clubs over the number of years just not do anything, just sit on their hands and try and see whether they can fluke some things. The Saints are being a little bit adventurous.
Yep.
Okay, it doesn't always work.
Well, Terry Miller has gone and Ahmed Saad's gone, and
Correct.
they gave up 25 and 26 for them. Tom Lee might not be any good.
Correct.
But isn't Dunstan pretty good?
Dunstan's a star.
Yeah. And Spencer White, who was part of that package.
Spencer White's going to be a star.
He might win the Coleman next year.
He could. Well, he could in 2 or 3 years, mightn't he? He'll get on him. What odds do you give me that, Ralph?
100 to 1.
Okay, I might.
1,000 to 1. A million to 1.
I'll take the millions. I have $1 on him at millions.
Travis Varco. I threw up last year that Travis was being shopped around by Geelong, and they were adamant that that wasn't the case. And Barmy said no, 2 to 3 weeks, and was very adamant that that was not the case. But now they're basically openly shopping him. And Barmy said today, look, there's some interest from, well, not Melbourne necessarily, but more West Coast.
West Coast, I think. Yeah.
He'd be good there, wouldn't he?
He would. There was a suggestion he might not want to go to WA. I'm not sure that he's pretty locked into Victoria.
Yeah.
But he'd be good at West Coast, I think. He'd be an outstanding. Interesting, the Cats, they're prepared to shop him around. They're keen, aren't they? They're keen to shop him around and that. They're intriguing, Geelong, aren't they? They missed out, obviously, on Frawley. Bring in Mitch Clark.
I think if Mitch Clark fires, and look, his manager Colin Young's really optimistic that he's got over his foot problems, his hamstring problems, and of course, the depression is something that he's keeping at bay. He thinks he can explode next year.
Well, and if he does, how's that going to make Melbourne feel? Too?
I know.
That's why they deserve the extra pick.
And how's it going to make opposition defenders feel? When who do you take? Tommy Hawkins or this bloke, and potentially Vardy. And look, let's not get too excited about a bloke coming off an ACL. And more to the point, Menzel. This is a fourth knee he's coming back from. But pie in the sky. They're a darn good football.
Well, they are. And you saw in stages this year, they just needed more than Tomahawk, and they didn't have it. And that was the key to them going any further. If they had someone else beside Tomahawk in that game against North Melbourne, when they're flying home and Tomahawk's doing a great job, they just needed someone else there.
They didn't need much, did they?
Not much.
They could have had one of those.
Not much.
Someone, but that would be a fearsome proposition for a lot of clubs. Look, I think they're in the sweet spot again. They get someone like him, it absolves them a lot of their real issues. And we're going to see a lot of those kids like Hall and Smith, and hopefully Billy Smets and a few other of those midfielders. If they can lift the slack, they're in a pretty good spot.
They are. Paddy Ryder, what's the latest Paddy Ryder? What's going on there, Ralph?
You know what? We all want to trade in certain things. We all want Claudia Schiffer. Not that I do. I love my wife, but it's all very well for Essendon to say, I want Hamish Hartlett.
She's getting a bit old, isn't she, Claudia Schiffer?
No, she's still beautiful, but of course I wouldn't make that decision. It's very much a hypothetical.
No, true.
True. Sorry, love. What Hamish Hartlett, Chad Wingard, or who was the third one? Ollie Wines.
Well, it's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. I mean, the noise that's coming out of Essendon's potentially, I cannot understand some of the things that are coming.
Well, we love Adrian Dodoro, but we know that they're not going to get Chad Wingard.
And clubs don't want to deal with them at the moment. They really don't want to deal. It's going to get Hartlett. No chance. Wines, good luck.
And that's as well that, Adrian Dodoro said, well, look, those blokes were, 7, 8, 9 in our best and fairest. Well, with all due respect, Essendon stumbled and bumbled, and Paddy Ryder was 7th in their best and fairest. But Port Adelaide wasn't too far away from winning the flag, so that's not apples and oranges to suggest that that those two picks are comparable. Look, I think in the end they'll get pick 17 as it is now.
It'll get done, won't it?
And of course Port Adelaide have to sweeten the deal, and they're throwing up players at the moment, and they're not Ollie Wines, but I don't know whether it was a Broadbent or someone of that ilk. I think that would be something that would get the deal done. And the elephant in the room is that no Port Adelaide stars, let alone role players, want to go to Essendon.
Who's going to want to go there? That's the thing. There's
if their own players are trying to get out.
Correct, and there's such uncertainty about what's going to happen with Essendon as a footy club, not just as a team that's going to be put on the field, but as a footy club in general. Then why would you want to go there? Why would you want to risk? Footballers get about 6 years on average of their life to make a living. Why would you want to risk? Playing in a team where you don't know whether the guy that you shares the locker next to you, whether he's going to be playing for 6 months or not. You don't know.
Yeah, well, Crammery, another Paul Connors client, very similar situation that Essendon just refused point blank to deal with Paul. And what happened? They used a pick on Zach Merritt. And I think we all feel like Zach Merritt was a terrific player. And if Essendon have to do that in a draft that has probably 15 to 18 really good players and you get 17 in a steak knives deal, I just think that Essendon have to do that. They don't want to go to a grievance tribunal. They're huffing and puffing about it. But what does it do? Mate, he's got the greatest case of all time.
Correct. Absolutely.
And so
you don't want to go to a group. That would just be a bad look for everyone, wouldn't it? Just
and a bad precedent as well for Essendon to have all of the players like Jason Winderlich or whoever it might want to be say, hey, boys, you don't have to trade me because I'm walking out for nothing.
I'm walking out.
That's a pretty good bit of leverage.
Absolutely.
What else, Macca? Paddy Dangerfield?
Yeah. No chance. No chance this year. Still, there's a lot of clubs deep down really trying hard. They know that it's not going to happen this year. But there's a lot of clubs who are just hoping, praying, clearing some money aside, just doing everything possible to think that they could lure him by the end of next year and get him to Victoria at the end of next year. I know Collingwood's one of them, without a shadow of a doubt. Geelong would be another. It'd want to be a pretty big club, I would think. But at this stage, I can't see anything happening. They've been that strong at Adelaide. I can't see anything happening this year.
No, I agree. And obviously we're at Trade HQ here, boys. But Philip Walsh will be the new coach of that club, as David Koch, the Port Adelaide chairman, announced on Sunshine, which I thought was a bit beyond exclusive.
Rooch did have a bit of it, though, didn't he?
Of course, Rooch and others have been all over the fact it wasn't a major surprise. But you only get one chance to say, this is our coach. We'd like to present him to you. So that was a bit cheeky by David Koch. But again, I mean, they'll back themselves in. Philip Walsh has been fantastic. West Coast innovations. It was at Adelaide.
Great football brain. I think that's whenever you talk to anyone about Philip Walsh, great football brain. People sort of forget that he was a very good footballer himself. He was best first year at Collingwood, I think, in 1983.
I knew there'd be a Collingwood connection there.
No, but then left. Went to Richmond, ended up at Brisbane. And everywhere he went, he developed relationships with everyone who basically knew what a great footy brain he had. So it's just a long time for him to get to that senior coaching. I don't know early on. I'm not sure that he really wanted that senior coaching role early on. I wouldn't say he doesn't like the media, but from his relationship, and here's the link back to Collingwood. After that, he got a bit of criticism when he went to Richmond. He's never had a great relationship with the media in a lot of ways, publicly. That's going to be fascinating to see how he handles that as well.
Well, Brenton Sanderson thought he loved the media, but he started to talk rot in the media about, being 26 degrees at the Gabba. And so, look, we link it back to HQ by saying, if he's the coach we think he's going to be, well, Adelaide backs themselves in.
Absolutely.
And if they make finals next year, it's very hard for Rory Sloane and Tex Walker and Paddy Dangerfield to leave that club. So, look, as you say, the clubs that he's been a player at, Adelaide, Port Adelaide, West Coast, successful environments. He's been one of those sleepers, someone who has always been on the top of the unsung heroes list. The Adelaide have recognised that. And I think it's a great decision.
Yeah, I think it is too. And when you look at it, obviously they had to make. I think they were always going to make a decision on Brenton Sanderson. It was probably a shock to come when it did, but it was probably just something that was going to happen 12 months down the track, you would have thought. So I think they've now got to start. Now they try and convince Paddy Dangerfield, this is your footy club for the rest of your life. And they've got to fit the ball's in their court. It's right in front of them. And it's going to be hard to drag him out of there, I would have thought.
And let's face it, he's got pubs with Mike Rasciuto. He's in businesses there. He's an ambassador there. He and Rory Sloane have got something of a pact that they say, look, we don't want to leave this football club. How would I feel to leave Rory in the lurch? And so, if everything goes right, it's fantastic. If everything goes wrong next year, that's catastrophic. That's turn out the light situation.
Well, how big a trade period next year or free agency free agency period next year would it be? And if he's not signed by June, July, the dogs will be barking, won't they, when in terms of him coming back to Victoria. There's going to be a lot of attention on the Adelaide Footy Club next year, not just because of the new coach, but when he gets that signature put to paper.
I'm all about clumsy segues, but I think I've got a good one. Speaking of the dogs barking, Adam Cooney, what are your thoughts? Hey, Macca, how about that?
Yeah, interesting. Name's being bandied around, hasn't it? It's happened a couple of years. I think was it last year or the year before his name was bandied around. Not sure which sort of clubs are sort of, I'm not exactly au fait with who's actually looking for him at the moment. Would he be a good option, do you think?
Yeah, I think he would. Some of the clubs that have been thrown around this morning, the boys on SEN, Brett Anderson and Matty Granlund were talking about maybe Carlton and Essendon. And he's not perfect for Carlton in that they're not really in that premiership sweet spot, but certainly Essendon would be a club that would be interested.
Would you go to Essendon?
I think you would if you're really unhappy at the Western Bulldogs, and I think that's what Coons is at the moment. Maybe he feels like he's underappreciated. He played some great footy this year,
he did,
but he played some really poor games, according to those that really watch the Bulldogs closely, Mark Stevens. And so, look, I think what's happened there at the moment is that some of the leaders aren't happy.
There's no question about that. So even Sean Higgins this morning on radio talking about, was asked about the senior players and disenchantment with the coaching group there. And he basically didn't want to talk about it. He said, there's a little bit of truth in that. There's a little bit of things that are not true in that. But he wouldn't elaborate on any of that. And the fact that he wasn't elaborating said to me that, sure enough, there's some serious problems there.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, a lot of those senior players felt like the coach was way too hard on them in the exit reviews. And I think Macca has conceded that to the club. I've gone through a review. He will be there next year. But, speaking to some of the people within that football club, they're not especially thrilled with the leaders. They feel like some of them are too selfish. Some of them are interested in how they play rather than about how the young kids play. So they've got to get that right. But I think if they could get a deal done that would be similar to the Brian Lake deal, maybe a mid-20s pick that gets folded back. And what we saw with the Bulldogs is that, look, they lost Lake, and Lake's gone on to win 2 premierships. But they've got Rovat out of an earlier pick, which they wouldn't have had if they'd had that later mid-20s pick. And I think they got Kobe Stevens. And so, if it helps them in some way, he will not win a premiership there. No. He's been a good player. He's been a Brownlow medalist. But it might be time to cash in your chips. Yeah,
well, he was at the Hawthorn Premiership dinner as well,
which
wasn't
didn't go down that well.
Probably didn't go down that well. Mind you, he's great mates with Brian Lake. He was in the rooms, certainly in the 2013 grand final. I think this year as well. So you can sort of understand it to a degree, but it did raise a few eyebrows, didn't it?
And the worst thing about this trade period going for 11 days is it means that there's no real pressure on clubs to get deals done, which is especially true with the Dane Beams deal. Mackie, you wrote last Saturday in the Herald Sun that there is a 5 p.m. deadline on Friday. What are we? Tuesday afternoon, so we're only 3 days away from that. What can you tell us?
Not a lot of movement at this stage. I think the Pies were pretty keen to try and organise Greenwood to suit that out as well. What they wanted to do, and I can certainly understand them from the point of view, who was that? Jay Clark?
Jay Clark.
Got any tips for us, Jay? We need a couple of tips.
He's got about 6 bags on him. I think he's got
lots of stories in those
Kilimanjaro or something like that.
Lots of stories in those bags. The Pies, what they didn't want to do, they didn't want it to roll through to next Thursday and have this trade being done in the last hour.
Well, then they can't get
good luck to them. I got smashed on Twitter during the week for saying that I was pro-Collingwood. I wasn't being pro-Collingwood at all. It was actually just stating a fact that last Friday, Gary Pert rang Greg Swan and said, we want this done by Friday, 5 p.m. If it's not done, we'll consider that you guys, are not going to get this done and we'll move on to other things. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It just sort of puts a bit more pressure on Brisbane to come up with. Brisbane want him and they're desperate for him, but they haven't really thought through the solution of you can't get him for that high pick, which will effectively be pick 5. What's going to happen if they can't do that? I think they'll get the deal done.
Well, the man with the bags, Jay Clark, told us today in the Herald Sun that pick 4, which now becomes pick 5 with that compensation for Frawley, and potentially Jared Redden. That would be a fair deal. Mate, Dane Beams is a magnificent player. He's 24. He kicks goals. He can do everything. Pick 5 and Jared Redden. That's absolutely appropriate for him.
Jack Redden?
Jack Redden.
Yeah.
Not Jared Redden, the ruckman from Port Adelaide. Jack Redden. Jack Redden. That's absolutely fair as a package.
Oh, I think that's a reasonable package. Collingwood put a list of a number of names to Brisbane. Ticked off straight away and said, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. They were desperately keen for James Aish. There's absolutely no doubt about that. That was probably never going to happen. Mind you, he's got a link to some sort of link to Pendlebury. I'm not sure exactly what the link is, but
he's former pick 7, so that'd be pick 5 and 7.
It's too much. It probably. Is too much. Mind you, I class Dane Beams as the second best player at the Collingwood Footy Club. Might be a little bit harsh on a steel side bottom, perhaps, who finished second in the best and fairest. But the deal will get done, Ralphie. I really do think the deal will get done. We saw Beamer with Heath Shaw at the Harper Veron in Kew. He didn't want to be at the best and fairest. So it's really hard to see him going back there. Eddie Maguire made a personal plea for him to turn up on the night. And, of course, we know Heretia Lumumba turned up on the night. The Prince, he turned up on the night. And his speech was pretty good by and large. It was probably trailed off a little bit in the last minute or so. But
what did he mean by "I'll have the last laugh"? Was that just a line that he didn't quite nail and maybe didn't mean to throw that in Collingwood's face?
I'm not sure. It was very cryptic, and that's what I sort of said. It was very cryptic, and I'm not sure Collingwood know either. By and large, the speech was really good. He thanked Nathan Buckley, he thanked Nick Maxwell, and he thanked the Footy Club for the journey that he's been on. Probably tailed off the last. If he could have the minute or so back at the end, he'd probably have the minute or so back at the end.
What do you think about Collingwood? Where are they at next year? They've still got some quality players there. They will get a pick and something for Beams. They will probably get 23 for Lumumba, and as you say, they'll get Greenwood. Where are they at?
I think they'll probably struggle a little next year. I would think 8, 9, 10 sort of bracket. Would have thought, because they're a very young side. That's the thing. They're a very young side. And that's why bringing in Greenwood's so important. That's why bringing in somebody like a Redden would be important, because they need some senior players. They need some experienced players. They don't want to be an under-21 side.
And if they bring in Redden, if they bring in Greenwood, you look at players like Broomhead. I know that Elliott had some injuries this year. If Dane Swan, who had a really injury-interrupted season, if he kicks back for another year and if
he gets on the track, with Dane Swan, they're very, very confident that Dane Swan will go into 2015 in a much, much better shape than he will 2014. And it sort of pricked his competitive, absolutely. And he's a competitive animal. As much as people think that he's not a competitive animal and he gives off that sort of aura that he's not, he's a competitive animal. He doesn't like being questioned. He doesn't like being doubted. So I think he'll have a really big year next year.
Well, we had the wrist that he basically struggled with. He had plantar fascia.
Correct. He had a hernia type thing as well. So
he had heels as well. So, I mean, that's 4 really significant injuries all bundled into one. And he's got, I think, 2 more years left on a contract.
He's got 2 more years left on a contract, and you would think he would see that out. I know some people might doubt that, given what he put out on the track this year. He wasn't horrible this year, but he wasn't Dane Swan. They're really confident that he'll be Dane Swan again next year.
And Nathan Buckley, look, he said you need some competitiveness, you need some criticism, you need some robust questioning. I don't think the players hate him. I think they think there's too many meetings. But what do you think about Nathan and his relationship with the players?
That's a really good sum up. I think a few people might think that there's a lot of meetings that don't need to be had, but it's a footy club and players shouldn't always determine what actually happens at a footy club. He's got some very close personal relations at that footy club. There's no doubt he's close to a lot of the younger guys. A few of the older guys, and most of them are gone now, those ones, he did have some issues with, but not insurmountable issues with the guys that are still there. So he's going to be under a lot of pressure next year. We know that. But as is the footy club, as are a number of other coaches. But I think probably the expectations probably lowered a little bit in terms of what people think that Collingwood can put out in the park next year. So, I expect them to be an 8, 9, 10 sort of side. They might slip into the 8. Do you give them any hope?
Yeah, I do, if all those things go right. But obviously, if a few more of those go wrong, they're going to battle again. When I spoke to a Hawthorn Premiership player yesterday, I just saw him out and about. I said, how long are your hours? He said, mate, if we did just training and weights, it'd be the greatest career ever. All the bloody meetings.
Yeah, true.
So the Premiership team has meetings.
No
the
doubt.
Premiership team are sick of meetings. When you're losing games of footy, meetings are always crap. When you're winning, they're probably crap as well. Last one here, a couple more questions. Can Carlton appeal the weight compo decision? There is a facility there. There is a facility for them to say, look, we believe it's unfair. Travis Old, a few others are on the panel, Mark Evans. It's not going to happen.
No, it won't happen.
When you're 32 and you're getting paid, 300s, you don't get compo.
No, you don't get compo. And that's fair enough. As hard as it might seem, you can't get compo for that.
No. So as we wrap up, we think that Beams is going to take a few more days. We think that Garlett will get to Melbourne for probably a late pick. We think O'Rourke in the next couple of days might get done. So at least we're ticking off some trade deals.
Yeah, let's get it happening. That's the thing. Don't leave everything to the last minute, which clubs always do. Get them done.
So Jay Clark will be with us tomorrow. It'll be a 4-hour special. Clarky said he's just going to be here all day.
He made a cameo before.
He did, and Mickey Warner as well. He says that he's going to step down from the Essendon scenario and just dedicate his entire day to Trade HQ. We've spoken a bit of rubbish. Hopefully we've given you a few informed opinions, and we'll be all over the blog and answering your questions all day. So that's it from me and Glenn McFarlane,
Thanks, Rocky.
Senior Herald Sun reporter.